going to go over how to use Google Sheets to create a graph. So most of us have drawn a bunch of graphs and they're great, but sometimes if I'm dealing with a lot of data, like anything over 20 or 30 data points, that's a lot of stuff to graph on my own. So I'm going to show you how Google Sheets can help you do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Google Sheet. So I'm in Google Drive. I'm going to click New Google Sheet, and it's blank, and that's fine. For this data, I'm going to graph ice days at Lake Mendota. So I'm looking at a climate assignment, but you could do this with any set of numbers that you want. So I'm going to wait for this to open. And just like I was actually taking data, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a data column, or a place that I'm going to take that data. So here is my sheet that's working on loading. Okay, so here it's loaded. I can title this whatever I'm going to call it. I'm going to call this Lake Mendota. I'm going to look over here at my data. So I've got a lot of data that I want to put in here. And what I'm interested in is how many days Lake Mendota had ice on it each year. So again, I'm just going to use this data, but you can use any data you want. So I'm going to take my first set of data, and this is kind of a weird, if I highlight down here, it goes all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to take a chunk at a time. I'm going to take just these pieces. I'm going to push copy. I'm going to go back to my Lake Mendota. I'm going to title my first column just like I was taking normal data. This is going to be year. Okay, and I'm going to paste my data in here. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is how many days of ice were on Lake Mendota that year. I'm going to go back to my tab. I'm going to go over here. Okay, now Google Sheets doesn't like certain things. It doesn't really like when there's no data for it. So here I'm giving it a year, but there's no data there. It's not going to like that. So I can delete that, or I can graph this and then decide what it doesn't like later. So to make a graph, I'm going to highlight column A and B. I'm going to click on this button right here. It says Insert Chart. And I'm going to tell it, for our purposes here, that I want a line graph. One of the neat things that Google Sheets will do is it will graph pretty much any way you want. Okay, so here it popped up with a line graph on its own. If I was doing some other kind of data that I wanted something else, I could change my chart type, but for now I want a line graph. Okay, now I've got my line graph, and what Sheets is going to do is as I continue to add data to these columns, it's going to update that graph. Now you'll notice I don't have anything here because of these 3 years without data, so I can go ahead and get rid of those. Okay, all right, now I'm just going to go back and I'm going to copy and paste data. Again, this is a great way to get through an awful lot of information very quickly. It might seem like this takes a while, but if you considered writing all this down, setting up your graph, drawing all the points, connecting the dots, this is actually saving a lot of time. So watch this as I paste this in here. It's going to enter my graph. Okay, and I can continue doing this for as much data as I want.